Good evening, everyone. It is Wednesday night. That's right. We are back with another episode of Minor League Fights and Insights. Welcome. It is 7 o'clock Central. It is 8 Eastern. Well, just a little after. That is all right. Thanks for joining us for this very important, very special episode tonight. Right now, we're heading into week 8. This is our 12th episode. We're heading in to the final stretch. Our plan is to finish out with at least 16 heading into after the draft, and a lot of fun. If you haven't checked out our show schedule on our Discord, do so to see sort of what we have planned in the coming episodes. With the championship, the playoffs, the draft, and everything coming up, we got a lot of fun stuff coming for you all to be entertained and get engaged around the stuff that we love, which is simulation football, the minor league. All right. So tonight we have a special guest. We switch over here. We have the man, the myth, the legend, Cameron Irvine, SFL commissioner. Appreciate you coming on tonight.
Appreciate you being let me on, Axel. Sorry.
No worries.
I was looking over at I'm a little rusty at this too. I was looking over at my other monitor because that's where I was, but that's not where my camera was. So I'll get a hang on this.
Awesome. You'll be an old vet at some point. I could teach you a thing or two. I'm just kidding. I've only been doing this since September, so you've got a lot on top of me. With me, as always, we've got Daniel Wright over there. I'm going to fix this. Okay, so producer side of me, there's this little bit of Cam's video cutting into Daniel. I'm just going to quick fix that just because that's bothering me. All right.
Oh, now I see.
There we go. All right.
It's only a little bit. It's not even that bad.
No, it wasn't too bad. I just didn't want you to get cut off, Daniel. My main guy,
Anyway.
right-hand man, to you, he's on your right-hand side of the screen, my left side. Anyways, welcome. Thanks to you both for joining us. Later on, hopefully not too long, we'll be talking with Cam. Cam's going to give us a big rundown of the various new league rules that are coming out based, from the output of all of the owner conversations and owner meetings and everything that had taken place through November, finishing up most recently in early December. I think just last week, things were getting finalized. It sounded like. So excited to hear a lot about that. I know that the audience is hungry to understand what these two-way contracts are, the 23-man roster, and anything else that really is something they should pay attention to. But first, we've got just a couple things, sort of points of business. We've got two SFLm players that we want to interview, and then we'll do a quick, very brief rundown of last week's games and this next week's games, what to look forward to on Saturday. All right, so first, we're going to jump into interviews. So we've got two individuals, two SFLm players joining us on the phone right now. We've got on the line, we've got Angela Meercat, defensive end for Memphis River Runners, and we've got Loddy, who is the wide receiver for the Salt Lake City Rustlers. Good evening to the two of you. Can you hear me?
What's going on, man? What's going on, y'all?
Awesome. Nice to hear you, Loddy. Angela,
Hi.
you there? Awesome. Cool. All right. Great to have you both here. We want to find out a little bit more about the two of you. Give the people a little bit of who you are, what your journey's been like for us or for you here in the SFLm, and, let you two shine for just a little bit here on the show. So I'm going to start with a couple questions, and then I'll pass it off to both Daniel and see if Cam has any questions also to follow up with at all. But first, Angela, tell me a little bit about yourself. Who is Angela Meercat?
Well, my name is Angela. Meerkat's not my last name, unfortunately, though. So I'm 36. I live in Minnesota, where you live as well.
Absolutely.
I'm married to a fellow player, as you know, Derek Meercat. You've interviewed him a couple weeks ago. We have I have a wonderful stepdaughter. I like playing D&D, board games, some Call of Duty. I'm an avid Minnesota sports fan, so Vikings, Timberwolves, Wild. I like them all, but even though they aren't doing the greatest right now, but we're good.
Awesome. Great. And Lottie, tell me a little bit about yourself. Who is Lottie Lou?
All right. Well, my real name's Renard Govan, but most of my friends just call me like Loddy Lou. So we just been running with it like for life.
Awesome.
30 years old. I'm from St. Matthew, South Carolina, born and raised. Grew up here. Like sports. I'm just like a simple guy. I just like love football. It's like my favorite team ever will always be like the Panthers. And other than that, like I'm probably like basketball. I might be like a Players fan and stuff like that. But like I like the Astros whenever I watch baseball. So it's cool to see them winning whenever, even though they lost the World Series this year. But like that's pretty cool. But like other than that, I'm more into like combat sports stuff, like this stuff like that.
Very cool. Awesome. Lottie, tell me about your SFL journey so far. What has it been like for you? When did you join? What is it? What has your journey been like?
Oh man, it's been crazy for me because I just like got here in October. So when I came here, I just came into the rush list, and I was a number 2 receiver, and like we lost a guy. So like I like became the number 1 guy, and like I felt like I became like team captain over the team. That's like been like the greatest thing for me is like just being in the locker room, being like that vocal guy, and just being there for my teammates. Like that's for me. That's like been like the biggest journey, like the funnest thing for me so far.
Awesome. I've seen you in chat a lot especially like the last few weeks since you guys lost your WR1 there. You've been big shoes to fill, but stepping into there, you've been doing what you need to do and things. And that's exciting to see you doing that, definitely. Angela, what has your journey been like for you so far?
It's been great. I joined in week 2. I believe I was the first defensive end that joined the league this year too. And then I think Cherry and Chris joined shortly after I joined as defensive ends. But everything, like honestly, everyone has just been so kind and welcoming and just very supportive. Especially all my teammates and our team chat and stuff. It's just great. We're there to motivate each other. Especially my coach Jay. He honestly gives us the best pregame and postgame speeches as well. He's just very, very supportive.
Awesome. So, Angela, what has been the most memorable time or moment that you might have had during your SFL career so far? Is there something that stands out as like, that was a really great moment? That's something I'm gonna take with me, into next season or into 2022 and try to get more of those type of things.
Yeah, so I actually kind of a couple. Honestly, when had my very first quarterback sack, I got so excited seeing how my player just went up and just sacked him, and I seriously was jumping for joy. I'm like, oh my god, my player can actually do this thing, and it was awesome. And then also being selected for that prospect bowl, seeing that I was the number 2 defensive end for the prospect bowl was just really, really cool to see my name up there for that.
Awesome. And yeah, so Lottie, you mentioned stepping up and things. What other are there any other moments that since you joined that have stood out to you as a moment that you're going to remember that you really enjoyed?
A moment that I really like remember and enjoy. Well, for me, honestly, just anytime so far we scored on offense in Salt Lake City. Because we haven't been scoring the football like that. So it's like anytime we got the ball in there on offense, because I think we're going to score like 5 total touchdowns so far this season. So anytime one of the guys got in, it felt good to be in the locker room. Like, hey, man, somebody got in. So that's like pretty much enjoyable thing for me.
Awesome. That's good to hear. Yeah, I'm hoping the next 2 games will be great for you guys. Salt Lake City, really turning it around. I'm hoping for you. Lottie, tell me about what are the characteristics of your ideal pro team? If there were one that you were like, what are certain things or traits that it might have that would really draw you in and make it feel sort of like your SFL home, if you will?
I think first and foremost, a great team always has a good defense. Because your offense can have its worst night, but as long as you have a good defense that can hold it down, we can score 13 points and we can still come out with the W. So that has to be like number 1 thing, having a good defense. And I think, after that, offensive line. Because if you got offensive line, you can run the ball better. You can protect the quarterback even better. So it's gonna make the offense even better. So once you get those 2 things rolling, then you just have like pretty much a fine tool too, like to do anything you want to do.
Just sort of opens up the game plan a lot more.
Right.
Very cool. Angela, similar question. What for you captures sort of the special traits or anything for what your ideal pro team would be like?
Yeah, so I'm kind of looking for a team that we have each other's back, win or lose. We have a tough loss. We're there for each other. We give each other compliments, or like we can work on this for next week, or what we can improve on and stuff like that. And it'll keep you motivated too as you throughout the season. I just want someone that's going to be there to like, hey, we got this. We can, we'll get this next week and stuff like that. And then also like a coach that will give you, advice on how to improve your player from week to
Mhm.
week as well.
Awesome. I mean, that's really important. The idea of feeling like sort of like a family aspect, like you were saying, having each other's backs and sort of being there to, it's not just about progressions all the time. It's about, how are you doing today? What's going on, in your life as well, because that oftentimes takes priority anyways. So, Daniel, do you have any questions for either of these two that you'd like to ask?
I do actually, but first, before that, Angela, I would like to say something on behalf of Eddie Gage. You'll get a lot of sacks with the Arizona defense. He's just saying. But before that, Angela, I'll go with you first because you have a very interesting dynamic. You and your husband are both players on the SFL, both in the minors. So I would like to ask a question more on this dynamic because I really want to see someone, be on the couch by the end of the night because that's how chaotic I am. Um, so tell me more about the dynamic. Do you cheer for your own team, like each other teams? Do you like silently curse them when you play against each other? Like, tell me a bit more about this dynamic at the household.
Yeah, so he actually so he's the one that got me into the league. Because I saw how excited he got with his first game, and then I was cheering for him obviously, and like, God, this looks like a lot of fun to do. So then I got in the league, and then so each week, yeah, we cheer for each other's teams. I we co- we If he does it really well at strong safety, I praise him, and he does the same for me. If I get a sack, he's right there, cheering me on as well. Um, and then when we were on the prospect bowl together, we were actually on the same team for that. So we were really happy to see that we were actually able to be on the same side as well. But then when it came down when we played each other, I think in week 6 or 5 or 6, I don't remember which week we played each other. Then it was kind of a little competition in the household, say who's the better person, who's a better player at that time. But yeah, it's just fun to a little banter here and there, and then we tease each other like, oh, you're gonna sleep on the couch tonight if you don't do this or something like that. But it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun to do.
Excellent. Great to hear. I love the family dynamics like that. I like to hear all about, your times and your travels, how you guys do on each side of it also. Mr. Liu, you are a wide receiver, which is very coveted and very hard to get drafted right now. I think we had 2 to 3 drafted last season specifically. And there are some tough competition. What do you think you can do, or what have you done to actually propel yourself to a prime spot to get drafted, sir?
I think just being the person that I am is what's gonna really just get me into a team saying, "Hey, we're gonna take Loddy But just because of the person that I am, and my personality, and things that I want to bring to the table going forward. Just talking to the guys that I talked to through the interview process, it's been like very, very funny, man. I've just been meeting like a bunch of cool people, man. It's just talking to like a lot of good people. So it's like just them getting to know who I am, what I want to be in the SFL, what I want to do in the SFL. They're like, man, I want to bring you on my roster, man, because I feel like you're gonna do big things. And honestly, I feel like I'm gonna do big things as well. So that's the biggest thing.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, Axel, back to you.
All right. I want to see, I didn't really prepare Cam for this at all, but Cam, are there any questions that you have for either of these two at all?
Yeah, certainly. Well, first off, I just love how it seems like the game just knows that the Meerkats are playing each other. I mean, Angela had a couple sacks that game, and her husband I think he had a forced fumble in that game. Like it felt like they were competing. But first off, it's my honor to talk to the two of you for the first time. So I'm glad that you guys are on the show. But as the guy that runs the show, I gotta ask, what's something here that you wish was better, or that we don't have, or maybe that you haven't run across, or something that you're looking forward to that you haven't gotten to experience yet?
I guess I'm just looking forward to the draft and seeing how that all works. This isn't my first season, and being able to see how that all works, and going forward. And who knows? I don't know if I'm going to get drafted. I may or may not. But even if I don't, that's okay. I look forward to seeing how the whole process works with you guys.
Well, I just want to say that it's a great league. it's like the closest thing you can get to the real league. You know, it's virtual. And I got here though just in October, and I see how passionate guys is about it. So I was like, man, I gotta be passionate too. You know, I like the sport. So when I joined up, I got into the locker room, and I was like, man, like this is just such a great thing that's going. So for me right now, I wouldn't know what you can like really change up. It would have to be like seasons in, so I'd be like, you know what, I think this could use a change, or I think this can do that. But like for right now, for me, the experience has been like super dope, and like I've been trying to get all my friends into it, but you know it's kind of hard to explain it to them. But like I just tell them, man, just get in the Discord, get in the locker room, and let the rest do it work. So it's just a great league, man. I just appreciate everything that everybody does for the league, and it's just been a super dope, fun experience.
Great to hear from both of you. Thank you.
Yeah, and Angela, you mentioned the draft and how excited or hyped you are for that. And believe me, whatever you're expecting, imagine 10 times that, because you know you're going to be in there and your emotions are going to be getting the better of you, and you're just like you're in the moment, anxiety and anticipation and excitement and being there. You know, we had like a waiting room where the group of us, you know, of other rookies were chatting and things. You know, there's just it's a once in a lifetime experience. So cherish that and be ready to be blown away. So
Yeah,
that's
we
what I
want to
got.
we want to put you on camera, and we want you to be a part of that experience when you're drafted. You know, we want to see your reactions, and you know, to give you your day in the sun, so to speak. So, you know, really love the night. Draft night is one of, if not my favorite nights of the year for sure.
It's definitely an experience that you'll only have once. They're 100% correct when they say that. You'll experience it once. It's gonna be a feeling that you've never had before. It's gonna be great. Just soak it all in.
Absolutely. Well, Angela, Loddy, I appreciate you both for braving it and getting on here with us and sort of laying yourself out here for us to chat with. So with that, feel free to jump on over into the Twitch and things, and we'll get on with the show. Sound good?
Man,
Sounds
sounds
good.
great, bro.
All right. Talk to you guys later. See you in the chat. All right. Cool. Thank you so much. All right. So we had 4 games last Friday. We're going to go through this sort of quickly. I also want to give a shout out quick to because we're doing this quickly as well. That you know this our show really is focused on building a community, of getting to know each other and learning. And I don't want to take away from some of that time to do that by just simply explaining some of the stats or the talk too much about the games that did take place. If you want more commentary, head on over to the SimPod guys. They are doing a great job of breaking down and adding commentary for the games that had just happened, and then the games that are coming up. So if you want a little bit more, make sure you go check out SimPod. So with that, we had 4 games. We had game 1 had Annapolis visiting Salt Lake City, the Rustlers, and even though Squarebush wasn't quite as used in this game, they were still the Struthers was still able to sort of get going, and the defense was able to hold the Rustlers to only 6 points, 2 field goals. Daniel, what is your take on this game? You were able to watch it. I remember you mentioned.
Yeah, I was able to watch it, and it honestly it started off the same way as last week's did, with Gene Struthers dictating the pace of the game. Salt Lake did a really good job actually at stopping Squarebus from getting like major yards. Like he got his trunks every now and again, but he didn't like get the major yards he used to get week in and week out. But Struthers was able to throw the ball efficiently and effectively, and he's actually becoming a pretty good general for his season and a half, I'll say, because he wasn't in it for the full last season. He's become a real good general on the field.
Very cool. So yeah, Annapolis again stealing the show. Their perennial, or every week they've been doing that. We'll see when we get to previewing if the next team that they face will be able to stop them. Game 2, we saw Boise versus Ottawa, and in this game, Boise really had most of the control over the game itself up until the fourth quarter, when Ottawa staged a comeback to tie it, forcing them into overtime. So yeah, Daniel, tell me a little bit about this game that you saw.
Yeah, this game was really close. This was Doug Brown was was having a good game. Like the last few weeks he's been really taking it back or taking it forward, I should say, and really putting the team on his back when he can. It was only a 4-point lead going into the fourth quarter, and it got tied and went to overtime. And Boise was able to get in field goal range at the end to secure the win and put themselves one or two games actually out of playoffs. So they're still in the hunt, and Ottawa is not out just yet. So you never know what could happen.
Absolutely. And that's before in preparing for the show, I went back to Cam, your graphic that you have of the playoff picture. And nobody's been eliminated yet. So really it's up to Boise and Ottawa to put together their best game plan that they can this season and bring it to their next game. So game 3 pitted Madison, the Lynx, visiting Lexington. And this game, for the most part, Madison played a really solid game up until the last, 3 or 4 minutes when Lexington was able to start to score points on them and do it in a very strong, heavy way. And I think it was 44 seconds left in the fourth quarter that they were able to get a touchdown, which then put them in the lead, which then they were able to get the ball back in some way. I think there was a 3 and out, and then or an interception, which then turned the tables and were able to kick a field goal to sort of put icing on the cake of their win. Interestingly, Lexington has beaten very strong teams. They've beaten Tacoma, they've beaten Madison now, and they've beaten Memphis. The only ones in the top that they haven't beaten is Annapolis, which is where they're heading to this Saturday. The last game we saw the Grizzlies heading over to Memphis to take on the River Runners. Daniel, tell me about this game.
This game was all about offensive willpowers. First half, both teams kept scoring. I don't think there was a punt in the first half. Brad Jones and GP Wells, they both were like fighting against each other on offense. One was taking a big run for a touchdown. The other had to match it. And in the second half, Memphis was actually able to get Tacoma a few stops, and Tacoma couldn't stop GP Wells. This was GP Wells' breakout game. He's part of the fourth horseman, but he's like the fourth horseman, so to speak, when it came to it. We didn't really see much of him yet, but this was his breakout game, and it was really good to see.
Yeah, it seems Memphis is a sort of a renewed team these last couple of weeks. I believe they had a coaching shift or change mid-season, and it seems like they've gotten, I think, really solid so far the last few weeks. So that sort of sums up last week. So looking ahead to Saturday's games, we've got Lexington headed to Annapolis to see if are they the ones to battle and see if they can give Annapolis their first loss of the season yet, or not. Again, like I said, Lexington has, strength of victories is pretty high for them. Those 3 victories have been against some of the top teams in the league so far, standings wise. And then we see Memphis heading over to Boise. Boise's on a roll with 2 wins so far. Memphis similarly really coming in strong these last few weeks. That will be probably a really important make or break game for them, for either of them, Boise specifically. Memphis really wanting to hold on to the spot that they have earned in that top part there in the top half of the rankings. San Jose travels to Madison. San Jose has had a little bit of a tough going lately. And so and Madison coming off their first loss of the season. We're going to see how that pans out. And then we have the Rustlers heading into Ottawa. Again, Ottawa. Both of these teams have a lot to play for. Rustlers at 2-4, trying to hold on to any hopes that they have. Similarly with Ottawa, I fear that if Ottawa were to lose, that would probably mean that they are pretty much out of contention for a playoff spot. Daniel, any votes on game of the week that you might expect, the game that you think is going to be the best one?
Well, the obvious one would be the Miners versus the Navigators, right? Because Lexington plays as well as their opponent. They play up to the opponent's standards, usually. Oh, Cam has something to say, too.
Yeah, I was wondering if he was raising his hand.
I was, but you can finish, Daniel.
Okay.
I had an opinion.
I actually like the Memphis and Boise game, or the Memphis and Boise game, because the Mud Dogs has a lot to prove. They have a 2-game winning streak, and Memphis is coming in strong. Like, they've been on a roll themselves. So I think this is going to be a butt in the head, and we'll see if the Mud Dogs actually have that momentum to keep going and try and secure a playoff spot at the end.
Cam, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm with you, Daniel. I look at the Memphis Boise game for, I guess, maybe an entirely different reason. It is tough having the last bye and waiting to find out if you make the playoffs. If Memphis loses, they would be 4-4 and sitting in week 9 hoping that they make the playoffs. They don't want to be there. And so I think that's a huge game. Boise's won 2 in a row. They were dead and now they're coming back to life. And Memphis doesn't want to lose and end up sitting at home potentially to watch Boise take their playoff spot away from them. That's not where they want to be. So as far as I'm concerned, that Memphis Boise game, I mean, that's a playoff game already, along with that Lexington Annapolis game, which, I mean, Lexington doesn't want to fall below 500 this late either.
Yeah. For me, I'm thinking, the wrestlers and cavalry, they might be bringing what they can, no holds barred, everything to the table. That might be a very interesting game to see what choices they might make, or what switch ups or changes that they might be doing here to, like, see what they can do to get that win over each other. So cool. Well, that sort of sums up our recaps and look forward to next week. So that brings us to sort of the topic du jour. So we'll be talking. It looks like Daniel's excited. So we're going to be talking about the variety of different rules that have been happening. Cam, you reached out to me. I think it might have even been like the 8th of or something, like, or the 15th or something, knowing that these rules, there's going to be a lot of rules, a lot of changes coming forth with
Right.
the owners meetings and things taking place, trying to get a spot on the show, trying to make sure that our schedules align to be able to get you on here to sort of bring this to exactly the people that are going to be really important to know this stuff coming in. And I did sort of allude to in my little, and I hope you take this as with all due respect, I had a little fun with the segment graphic title. And I sort of wanted to see if anybody wanted to come in just to simply see what this was. So anyways, I'm calling this segment, and maybe anytime that you come on, we'll call it this too, Mr. Irvine's Neighborhood. So here you
Okay.
are coming in. I don't know. So welcome to your neighborhood. So we're going to talk 23-man rosters, two-way contracts, and more new rules. So anyways,
We're
again,
not going to talk about any of that until we break down the photos. This is
so it's just you
wow,
over Mr. Rogers. So
yes, but wow, that is that sweater made from the carpet of a van from 1985? Is that
I'm sure it smells like it too, or something. I bet. Oh goodness, musty.
Wow.
I can. It's either that or like I'm sure Kurt Cobain might have been the wearer of it too after the fact. Anyways,
Brilliant.
So yeah, we'll be talking about all these different things. So yeah, first we're going to talk about 23-man rosters. All right. So Cam, tell me a little bit about this and sort of what do we need to know about 23-man rosters?
Okay, so what you need to know is that all of the players count against the salary cap, so they all work just like any other player would in the league. You sign your contract when you get drafted. You're given kind of especially when you get drafted, right? You're kind of given what the team has left in their salary cap. It's not until you hit that next off season where your career really kind of gets to become totally and completely your own, right? You have an opportunity to field other offers from other teams. You have an opportunity to say, hey, I'm not willing to cut, more than X off of this, and if my team doesn't want to do that, then I can, and you also have the ability to say, hey, man, I believe in this team. Whatever we need to do to go win a championship, I'm here for that. So, it works the same, just like any other player, but obviously players beyond 20 are going to be treated a little bit differently by the league, and that's given the game that we play, given the way that the game was designed, that's done intentionally. We want to make sure that all of our players, as we grow, are getting uh, realistic and sufficient playing time, right? We don't want anybody buried on a bench. We don't, that's not fun. That's not fun for anybody. And so it's part of the team strategy to get them involved. That's why you see some of the other rules that were put in place to ensure that, our players that are coming in, they may not have been here 4 years ago when all these other people were kind of in on the ground floor, right? But they get their shine too. And so it's going to make things interesting. There's, anytime you get more players on the field, it's going to make the games a little bit more exciting and entertaining because, slowly but surely, there ain't going to be anybody that's not a person making a play out there on the football field. So,
Yeah. And so again, so last year or last season, season 17 that just ended, that was with 20 men on the roster, 20 user players. So now there'll be 23, and you were referring to the top 20, and then there's the remaining three that are sort of this is the 3-man extension. We're extending it to be 23 man rosters. And I assume, or it sounds like the top 20, I'm going to move my hand, the top 20 are considered starters. They're the ones that are starters, starting in their positions, etc. And then there's the 3 additional, and we'll get a little bit further into 2-way contracts, but those 3 are then the ones that are have the option of having 2-way contracts. That's, I'm saying correct things, right?
yeah. The only thing I would say is, you think about like, the first wide receiver on a depth chart, right? There's only, let's say, maybe 5% of formations or packages or whatever the case may be, um, that don't have any wide receivers on the field at all, right? In fact, there's only one specific package. And if rookies don't know, the difference between a package and a formation is, you might have a spread package, and that's all personnel groupings, right? So spread package means that you have 3 wide receivers. Now there are a bunch of formations that can take those wide receivers and move them all around the field, right? But it's a specific package, whether it be spread or I form or 5 wide or queens or kings, that all have these different personnel groupings. And so if you're a wide receiver 1, you're in on almost every package, right? And so you're going to naturally get a higher percentage of playing time. Well, there are other players on the field that naturally are not going to be in as many packages. The wide receiver 5 is in far less packages than the wide receiver 1, for example. So the way we look at 23-man rosters is it's not necessarily about the last 3 rookies drafted or the last 3 spots that get on a team. It's really more about which 20 of my guys are getting the highest percentage of natural default playing time based on the packages that we typically run and usually put out there on the field, right? And so what that does is it tells the other players who are still going to be playing in the game, are still going to be a part of these packages. It allows them to get more playing time, get as much playing time as possible, whether that be in SFL or SFLm. I hope that makes sense.
It does. It does. And the other question that I have, or not question, correct me if I'm wrong, that there's the new requirement, or at least a requirement that every 23 members on the team have to start in one package or formation.
Correct. Package.
Okay.
Yes.
So everybody will have an opportunity to be a starter for at least a single play in the playbook, whether that play gets called or not necessarily, because again, only half the plays per game get called, give or take. Is that so? That sounds pretty accurate. That's a requirement that these players have to be assigned to a play or a package of some sort.
That's right. And we're still giving teams, the leeway and the leverage. Players have to understand too that sometimes you run into a defense that, let's say, may be extremely good at stopping the run. They have a very good front 4. It's very difficult to maybe run that type of offense against that team. And so what a team might say is, look, we're gonna pass a little more today. We're gonna kind of open it up. Because that's what we need to do to win, and that's going to mean that for, let's say, like a fullback, for example, who is typically in there blocking on first and second down, and you've kind of got everything compact, maybe that fullback is not going to see as many snaps or plays or carries that he might or she might be typically seeing in that game. And ultimately, the team, wants to keep you happy too. So it's not like they desire to never put you on the field because they don't want to have players count against their salary cap that they're not using either, right? That doesn't give them any advantage. But there's going to be these particular games in which some players are going to see more playing time than others uh, than in a typical game, and so we'll kind of see what that looks like. We'll kind of see what that means for players across the league, and how teams utilize all these pieces because teams have never had this many pieces before. A lot of times there might be offensive formations and defensive formations that aren't called because they've just never had the pieces to call them before, right? So you might not see a lot of, like, for example, 3-4, because teams don't have 4-star linebackers. That's just not something that you would have on a 20-man roster. But on a 23-man roster, you might be carrying 4-star linebackers, and now the 3-4 works way better than it did because you just have more talent on the field. And so I think we're going to start to see more variety in how teams attack opponents, and that's a big benefit to all of our players because that means that everybody and their little part to help the team win, everybody matters in some way.
Mm-hmm. So one big takeaway that I took away from what you were describing just a minute ago too is that though the requirement is that an individual has to start, every individual in the 23-man roster has to start in some way. That does not guarantee you will be on the field every single game because of the different play calling and situations that you were sort of describing as well, or doesn't guarantee play time.
Right. I would say, Axel, it's there's almost going to be zero situations in which someone would not play at all. I think it's a matter of more, I mean, every once in a while it does happen. Like, for example, some teams may go to just a straight nickel because that's how they feel they can best defend an opponent. Well, they have 3 linebackers, right?
Yeah.
And so there may be a situation where they go, look, man, like this is our best chance. This is how we feel like is our best chance to win. But I think that's probably maybe 2% of games. I mean, it's not a lot. I think what you're going to see more of is a player might play 20% of the snaps one week, 40% of the snaps another week, right? There's going to be some variance in how many plays you are seeing on the field, but you're going to be having plenty of opportunities to participate and contribute in the game. It's just, sometimes it's just going to vary. And we hope as a league that our coaches will be, up front with their teams about, here's our strategy this week. Here's who is going to be critical this week. Here's who's going to make the biggest difference for us. The game sets on the shoulders of X because, we really are trying to attack this team in a particular way. And I think as long as all of our players understand, that, hey, we're all in this together, and I will have my moments in the sun just like my teammates will have their moments in the sun, then I think that that this all works very beautifully. Because imagine getting, a pick six when, we really haven't said your name all day because you just happen to be in on this amazing play. We've seen it many times before.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see how it all plays out.
Very cool. I appreciate the extra clarity there. Daniel, before we move on to anything else, did you personally have any questions about 23-man rosters?
Not for 23-man rosters, but the two-way contracts, I will have a few questions for because I'm really interested about two-way contracts.
Awesome. And to the audience, we'll be hopefully having time at the end for a Q&A as well to get questions that you've been posting in the chat or that you might have. All right, so we'll move on. Two-way contracts. What do SFLm players and or GMs and owners and anybody in the league that cares about these, what do we need to know about two-way contracts?
So two-way contracts was built by the league as a protection to players to ensure that all that you have worked for up to this point to get drafted is not in vain simply because a team just doesn't have a lot of cap space left, right? That's not their fault. That's not the player's fault. That's not anybody's thing. But when you are talking about potentially being, a 22nd, 23rd player on a roster, we don't want any player being in a position where they're getting a smaller amount of playing time and they're losing a bunch of value that they earned, right?
Mhm.
That's not something that anybody would be looking forward to. And so two-way contracts is a way for us to it's kind of like a safety net for if in the event that a team picks you up and says, "Hey, we really want, we really want another one of these, right, at this position, but our team's pretty stacked here. We're building for the future, right? We're building our whole roster to go out and win a championship. And if somebody gets hurt, you're the next person up. If we're concerned that maybe this might be the last season for this player, right? That's playing in front of you. And so we're building up for that future. And we're kind of strapped for salary cap points. So, tough
Mhm.
break, right? So what two-way contracts does is it locks in that value that you earned for yourself before you got drafted. So in the event, whether it's the team that drafted you or another team the next offseason that is looking, for somebody to be in a much bigger role than you are on your current team, you're able to essentially go back to that value that you earned, that build that you made in the minor leagues, and sign with that instead, right? Because you earned that. You're that skilled. You are that talented. It was just in the moment of getting drafted, that opportunity may have not existed for you, right? Just because there's so few spots and there's so many players in the pros, and so that's really what the message is about two-way contracts. It's just to protect what's yours for the long term.
The time that you've put in progressing and things, especially as
Correct.
a second and or a third year minor league player.
Yes.
Again, you're at gold. You might be 105 value points, but coming in as a RB2 or a QB2 or something, you might have to take a hit. But your 105 that you've earned so much or worked so hard to earn, sort of like you said, gets frozen, and then you can come back to that later. But you've got to you can then be signed at 85 or 95 or something like that.
When you think about it, Axel, it's when you go from college to the pros, for just to use a real life example, your skills. Let's say that you were a 95 in college. You're very few people end up a 95 in pros just like that, right? They compared to the talent that is in the pros, compared to the veterans that have been in the pros for so long, you may not necessarily be at that caliber, but it doesn't mean that that you lose all of your potential, right? And that's basically what minor league value is it's showcasing your potential. I can be this. Now, if you need me to be this, I'm here for you. I'm here right away. I can start tomorrow. But I'm also showing you that this is my potential. And we want players to ultimately capitalize on that potential in the event that they can't right away, right? And so I think it's really important to sort of harness that potential and say that that matters. That's worth something.
So tell me about league play. When are they going to be playing? Those that do get two-way contracts, it sounds like they can play both in the pros, but then they also get to go back to the minor leagues and play as well.
Correct. So when you play in the pros, you progress in the pros, right? So if you get drafted, no matter what, two-way contract or no two-way contract, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you get drafted, you're a pro player, right? You are in the pros. You've made it, right? You are, for lack of a better phrase, in the system. You are in. But the league recognizes that. Yes, Axel, you are. Sorry, I'm watching on a delay, but you are
Sure.
brushing your shoulders 10 seconds behind. Yes, you are. You are in. You are the real deal. So, So what happens is that, yes, you are there. Yes, you have been drafted. Yes, in the next offseason, you are treated like a free agent, just like any other player who's been drafted. But two-way contracts help get you some more playing time. And what it also does is it showcases other teams and reminds other teams, if you want me at this value, this is my potential, right? Because your whatever is higher is what you play in the minors. So for example, if you sign against the salary cap as a 79, but you built up to an 86 in the minors, right? And let's say you progress in the pros and you get to like an 84. Well, 86 is higher than 84, right? So that's what we're going to see in the minors. And that's what you are showcasing to other teams is, hey, I can be this 86 for you. This is what I look like as an 86 here in the minors. And so it's kind of a refresher to other teams that this is how great this player can be if they were in an even larger role in the future, whether it be on, on my team. But it's also a way for players to maximize their potential playing time because the reason why they have a two-way contract is the team felt that out of their 23 players, these players had the biggest chance of seeing the least amount of playing time on their roster. Now, that doesn't mean that every player on a two-way contract is only going to see the field 5 snaps a game. That's not what that means. But for that particular team in that particular instance, they seeing 50% of the snaps may be the least amount of snaps that anybody sees on their team.
Mm-hmm.
And so you may get a two-way contract even though you are playing the majority of snaps in the minors. And the teams are going to know that way more than me. How can I tell a player like, well, based on what the team has done previously, this is you're probably not going to see the fit. I have no idea what these teams are doing. They're changing all their schemes. They have new coaching staffs. And that's not an area of expertise for me. So I say, hey, the teams will know kind of how they're going to use these players, what their strategies are going to look like, and give them that opportunity to, hey, go get some more playing time, and hopefully we see you back as a re-signee, right?
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully we have more opportunity for you in the next off season.
So two-way contracts are designed specifically for players who are drafted. They're not for free agents at all. And
Correct.
so you have to be drafted, and that is the opportunity, that moment when you get drafted, that first contract is your opportunity to sign for a two-way contract. And then again, this is what I've read from conversations and the information that you issued. That then say you're signed for a season at a two-way contract. Either you can renew again, still at that two-way contract if you're one of those, the 21st, 22nd, 23rd players on that team, or that two-way contract could move with you to another team at that 21st, 22nd, 23rd player level as well. Or that two-way contract could become null and void and become a regular one-way contract and pull up your value that you used to have, and you now are in that top 20 players, whether that's on that same team or on a different team as well. Is that accurate?
Yes,
Okay.
that is. So think about having a two-way contract as as you protecting your potential, right? Once a team says, right, we plan to capitalize on your potential. You're going to start in all these different packages. You're going to be on the field 95% of the time, right? We want to sign you, whether it's at the value that you got in the majors or the value that you earned in the minors before you got drafted, right? Like it's all going to depend on what the team is offering you. And ultimately, it's important for players to understand that it is their decision. If you don't if you want to seek an opportunity for more playing time, and that's what matters most to you, and that's you don't necessarily care about playing in the minors anymore, and don't want to play in the you want to take that next step in your SFL career, do it. right? Do it. Shed, capitalize on your potential. But there is no rush. You can be on a two-way contract as long as you are never not on a two-way. Does that make sense, Axel? So what that's doing is that's holding on to your potential until you are ready to for that perfect situation, for that perfect spot. And that might be you telling, a team like Daniel's on Tulsa, that might be you telling Tulsa, hey, I'm here for the long haul. Let's say that I'm the fourth wide receiver on Tulsa and there's three others ahead of me, right? And we get to the next offseason and all three wide receivers want to come back. You have a choice as a player, right? And so that player can say, look, I'm here for the long haul. I'm here to wait my turn. I'm here to wait for my moment because when I do have my moment, I want to have it here, right? Or you could say, I hope that an opportunity had opened up. I want to become a bigger part of the team. I can't do that. Maybe I can do that down the road, but man, this opportunity that this other team just gave me, I can't pass that up. I want to come back. I want to be, I want to be a bigger difference maker for the squad in the future, but I've got to go do this, right? I've got to go uh, uh, take this opportunity for myself. And that is all when the player makes those decisions, that is entirely up to the player, right? And so that's it's really important to like teams can offer you whatever they want. You have a choice. You don't have to do anything, right? You can negotiate, you can take something that originally didn't think you were ever going to do, like I'm never going to leave this team, but then someone drops a 110 in your lap and you go, yeah, it's pretty good. like, that's really exciting. Like I'd really like to do that. So, it is going to be interesting to see how it develops. Honestly, Axel, from a value standpoint, it will probably only affect a limited amount of people, right? Because for the most part, players are not in a place where they've just got a crap ton of value and they're going to be really hard to fit under a cap, right? Because a lot of these players are very new to the league and they're still building up their value. So it's not, but we're talking about like the big time running backs, right? Like this could affect their value greatly. Mostly two-way contracts are going to be about playing time. If you get drafted as a defensive back, for example, and you're in nickel or dime packages or just dime packages, right? These are the type of players that they're going to continue to see playing time in the minors because we all know that if you're playing 4-3, 3-4, 4-4, bear, all of those different types of defenses, there's only 4 DBs out there on the field, right? And so you can point to these kind of, if you're a defensive lineman, you're probably not getting a two-way contract because you were going to play every snap because people need defensive linemen, right? And so it's going different things are going to affect different people differently, and the only way to know how effective the system and the program really is to see how it works for a season and then make our adjustments along the way.
Yeah, I appreciate that too. That it may work out. You've done everything that you can to lay the groundwork for this to be successful. You put the safeguards in place with making sure that the teams are on board and educated with where and how they can behave. And right now we're sharing with the players exactly what to expect and things. But just like anything, that's new. There could be unexpected things that might pop up, but that's what we do. We pivot, we adjust, and we learn, which is great. And I also appreciate the very first thing you said. This is meant and here to protect players. This is meant to protect the value, the effort, the time that you've put in to your player, but also helping you to achieve your dream of ideally getting into the pros and making an impact out there, but also show off your hot stuff in the minors as well. So that's awesome. Cool. Daniel, you said you had a question, perhaps?
Well, I had a question, but Cameron
Oh, I
decided to
love
bring
that.
up dime packages, and my question kind of got nulled because I was in a similar situation last season, actually. I was a secondary free safety, so I was playing only in dime packages. So my curiosity is for the rookies this season coming up because a lot of them don't know when exactly they're qualified for a two-way contract. So I was going to bring up on the defensive end side, but you already answered. If you're in dime package like that, you don't get a whole lot of playing time, and you are qualified for two-way contracts. My new question, because I have to make one right on the spot, is what happens if you are the secondary back, but then that primary back goes midway through the season? Do your two-way contract get nulled when you get put into the primary spot?
It would, right? But it's up to the team ultimately what they want to do. The team does not necessarily have to elevate you to a starter, right? Because but in almost all cases, right, they probably do. And in almost all cases, given the fact how given that starting running back is just 24 spots, starting quarterback is just 24 spots, they're super valuable. If any running back out there gets an opportunity to start, you're probably taking it. Right? It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter what offense that you are in. It's just kind of like, wow, that opening exists, and I have to take that opportunity whenever it comes. So yes, they once you are elevated into I guess what you would consider a starting position, then the league would consider that as now you playing in the minors is taking a spot away from someone that could play. And the problem is the interesting thing you brought up, Daniel, with you being in the slot is another problem that we're trying to fix is what is actual need by teams in the SFL. So what I mean by that is, Daniel, you get drafted and you play sparingly in dime packages, right? And some games, you can attest to this, Daniel. Some games you probably played more than others
Oh yeah,
because
definitely.
because either you were playing a big passing team or you guys were ahead and the other team was behind, and you guys had a bunch of dime on the field, right? So there were moments that you played more than others. But the problem is that when you get drafted onto Tulsa, we open up another safety spot in the minors. Well, if you just got drafted to a spot where you're only playing in dime packages, does the league really need another free safety to come in and fill up the talent pool? It doesn't. Not really, right? Because you're not even getting a whole bunch of playing time and you just got drafted. And so what it's going to do is it's really going to show it's really going to curtail the market to what is really needed and what is really going to get drafted out there, because you're going to have those DBs still playing in the minors and still keeping that spot closed to the new players, for lack of a better term. So when a running back gets drafted into the league as a starter, yeah, we're going to open up that spot. But if a running back gets drafted and they're playing on a two-way contract and they're seeing 10 carries a game, well, I'm not going to open up another running back spot just so they can sit there for 2 years just like that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
That because
Yep.
they are still those running backs are still sort of waiting to reach their full potential, and so the league considers that spot still closed in the minors. So I think it'll help us distribute talent a little bit better and a little bit more where we need it. So if you see things like wide receiver, for example. If you see a lot of wide receivers getting two-way contracted because teams want to run, a two tight end, two wide receiver look, and their three is not going to get much playing time, or they just go three wide, but they don't do a lot of four, shotgun stuff, then that'll help the backlog at wide receiver as well, because we're not opening up so many spots just because somebody got drafted. So it's a nice little hybrid way for us to also help manage the length of time players are waiting once they get in the minors.
Yep, and to allude to the dime package, there were plenty of games where I saw myself on the field a lot more, and then other games where it's more run heavy, I was there two or three times in the span of a game. So it does vary even in what packages, the game to game.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. All right, we're going to move on to catch all of any other more rules more new rules that our players might need to know moving into the draft in season 18.
Yeah, I think the big one access is how depth charts work. So a few seasons ago, the league wanted to sort of get on the books what exactly we're doing with the depth charts and to give new players an idea of what we used to have to do before the portal. We tracked all of the values of players on a spreadsheet. And when people progressed, it sounds crazy just talking about it. We progressed on Discord. We had a person check to make sure that that progression was correct within the rules. Then they would tell someone else, and someone else would put it in the file. And then someone else would put it in the spreadsheet, right? So that we could check. And then what happens when someone's value to the cap switches. So, for example, if you have a 93 receiver and a 92 receiver against the cap, right? And one of them, the 93, progresses an attribute, and the 92 picks up an animation. Well, now the 92 is a 97 or a 98, and the other one is a 93 or a 94. But the 93 or the 94 is starting in as the top wide receiver. And so the rule was, because it was so, I mean, I would have to check the spreadsheet every week to see if someone has changed, and it was extremely problematic. And so we established the rule set that depth charts at the beginning of the season are locked to what their value was against the salary cap at the beginning of the season, right? And so if you were the wide receiver one at the start of the season, you would be the wide receiver one at the end of the season. No questions. It just was how it was. With the portal, with the automation portal, we actually have a button that can sort players by value against the cap. So if teams want to rearrange their players in the depth chart based on their skills and talents that they've acquired throughout the season, they will be able to do that by just telling me that's what we want to do. It is a team option. It is not something that is required by teams, but is something that gets told by the league 48 hours before their playbook is due, so your opponent can download, right, a roster with everyone in the correct depth chart places. So because we are able to do that now, the owners voted for further flexibility, and that can be a big difference when it comes to matchups, right? If you've got a particular DB on the outside who is, for example, has a bump master, right? So they're really, um, for those that don't know, that means that when you're in man coverage and you try to get off the line, they're going to hit you and you're going to basically knock you off your route. Sometimes you even fall over if you're paying attention to the gameplay enough. But if you've got a receiver that has bump master, and which is the counter to bump buster, and you have an opportunity to get that receiver isolated on that defensive back, that might be a reason why you might make that change. In that particular week. So it does add a new wrinkle, but also a realistic wrinkle as well, because sometimes players emerge as better targets on a team throughout the course of a season. And wide receivers is the easy example, but you could use this in any position out there. But I think of like the Los Angeles Rams. Robert Woods used to be the one over there. Cooper Kupp was the two. And eventually that's just not what happened, right? And Kupp became the one. And so our teams potentially have those situations as well. And I think this rule will help make some of those matchups a little bit more interesting, add some new storylines and some new wrinkles to game planning and how teams go about doing that.
That's exciting, actually. I'm very, very cool to hear that. Any other rules that we should know about, or other things that have happened?
Yeah, well, it's been pretty quiet out there on that front. We're obviously gearing up for free agency, gearing up
Mhm.
for the schedule release, which is in 6 days or 8 days rather. There's a lot of excitement around the next convention and potentially going back to live in television studio rookie drafts. We had one December 2019, and then COVID screwed everything up. And so we couldn't have one in December 2020, and then this year with my wedding last month, there was just too many variables, and
Mhm.
and we couldn't make it happen. But starting in winter 2022, I looked to a live, in-person, live in studio draft with green rooms and a studio audience and rookies there to potentially get drafted in person. By the way, if you show up to a live draft in person at a television studio, you're going to get picked up. Some team is going to say, "Wow, they are all in," and you are going to get picked up. And that's exactly what happened the first time. And the funny thing about the live in studio draft, Axel, was we didn't we didn't even think about players wanting to be there.
Mhm.
We were just thinking about, how can we take the draft to the next level? And it was the players themselves, Johnny Pickler, Phoenix Jones, that were like, "Oh, I'm coming. I'm going. I want to get drafted in person. No, I'm getting on a. I'll see you there." And it was really cool because that was kind of our first chance to meet those guys, and they got to kind of. I mean, who doesn't love walking around a television studio? I mean, most people don't get to do that. It's a really cool thing. And we want to get back to that. So we want to get back to having conventions in the summer, live drafts in the winter, and putting a little bit more a recruitment. So like, actually, if we do things like roster expansion and things like that, we would do them in the winter so that we can have bigger drafts and make more out of that sort of live draft experience. So I think
Definitely.
I have a lot of energy related to those topics, but rules are pretty quiet. It was really difficult. We spent a month talking about how we were going to expand from 20 to 23 because it wasn't like the expansions of the past. We went from 11 to 12 to 14 to 17 to 20, right? But all of those players were going to see the field all the time, right? And so, because we're entering into sort of a specialty market where a player might be drafted to do a particular thing, right? You're going to play third down nose guard, right?
Mhm.
That's what you're going to do. And you're going to rush the passer. And that's what we need. And now that we're getting into this more specialized team game of football, it was quite the challenge to really thoughtfully make sure that we covered all the bases with having this rollout be a success, because we could easily have players just buried on rosters, not really getting any playing time and feeling like it was kind of all for nothing.
Yeah.
And we definitely didn't want people to feel that way. And if they felt that way a little bit early, we wanted to make sure that they didn't have to feel like that for very long. Um, and so um, and so it was really important with a lot of discussion. A lot of times the old adages, that teams just care about themselves, and they're just kind of on their own, and doing their own thing. But these teams really care about doing great things for the players and the league. They want to get it right. And the passion in those meetings about what people feel like is the right way to do something is, I mean, second to none anywhere in a league. But these are complicated issues. I can tell you, Axel, there were multiple proposals that were rejected. I
Mhm.
mean, we went through proposal after proposal after proposal looking for the right solution. And I believe, as I always do, that the majority will usually get it right, and the majority of teams felt like this was the structure that we should go with, and I think we're going to get it right.
And I appreciate you describing that here too. And I know it was mentioned, or maybe not fully explained, but the votes were mentioned in your article that you sort of the press release that you had issued with the rules changes and things that you did a week or two or so ago or so. Um, I appreciate the that it's really a group mentality. It's collaboration and our own personal conversation that you and I had. You talked about you're there representing the players. Every single one of us, you're there having our backs. Representing wanting the best. That's for us, as well as the teams are there. Representing themselves, but also the players that are going to be on their team and their future. And it feels like like you said, it takes a group to sort of move a mountain, like you guys did. But the group, they all have the same vision, the same passion, the same ideal that they share that, and it's just the path how they want to get there might be different, but that passion is there, and I appreciate that from you and all the team owners that participate. One other question I had is, so we talked about owner meetings. Is that something that happens every season or every year? What type of cadence is that? And is there usually a few rules that get changed or other things as part of that as a result? Is that a typical thing?
Yeah, every off season we have owners meetings, and some are more important than others. Depending upon what we're talking about or what we have in front of us. The severity of the conversation can be very big, or not really that big at all. I
Mhm.
was just looking up because I knew it was so Prop 2, which ultimately failed in addressing this conversation. It was 1,521 words. And it wasn't good enough, right? Like sometimes, like
There's a lot of
you can think about all of the things that are going to work, and then there's so many different places along the way where people go, I don't know, I'm not so sure about that. And so it just I think we ended up with 7. So like it just there's so much care that is taken into just wanting to do it right. But
yeah.
that's really what owners meetings are about, right? So what we will do is if the league has anything that we need to do, we will settle that first. So, for example, we went to teams and we said, we're going to 23. We're expanding the rosters. That's what we're doing.
Mhm.
Now we need to meet as a group to figure out how we're going to go about doing that. Now we don't have every off season something like that for the teams. We may not have anything at all. And so what I usually say to teams is, if you have anything that you want to see fixed, improved, adjusted, added, made better, that has everything and anything to do with the product, not the business behind the product, let's hear your proposal, right?
Mhm.
And let's put that proposal on a ballot, and let's discuss that proposal as a group, as a group of teams and the league. And so sometimes, Axel, like there may be a proposal about how we think that to specialize quarterbacks, to make them less cookie cutter, to cut down on the interceptions, that quarterbacks should be able to progress one stat beyond 90 to a 99, right? And so we might go back to the team and we might say, okay, while we do not fundamentally disagree with that proposal, it's something that we have to code into our automation portal because that's not coded in. And
Mhm.
every time we code stuff, it costs money, right? And so um, we have to weigh, is that something that is a good enough idea, or is a radical enough idea that's going to make a major impact on the league, that we should invest in making the league better in this way, right? Because
Mhm.
sometimes ideas are so good, you want right away to say, yes, we need to do that. We need that. That is way better than what we're doing now. Or do we have to say, look, we want you to table this for another off season, and we'll see what our coding needs look like depending upon where we are next off season, and revisit it, right?
Mhm.
And then there are other situations where a team might say, I think that what's a good example? I think that we should eliminate the uh, ability for players to pay by month, right? And I would say, I'm sorry, but that's not really in your field, because
Mhm.
that's a business thing,
Mhm.
and that's not what this is about, right? And so sometimes things can, but when they deal with, like, for example, what passed with fullbacks, raising the fullback maximum height to 6'4" to 6'5" to allow more flexibility for fullbacks and tight ends to navigate position changes, that passed. League doesn't have any problem with that. We did run some tests, right? Is it something where it provides an unfair advantage by having a fullback of that height? And the testing that was done is basically like, it just doesn't matter. right? And
Mhm.
so everybody kind of gives their approval on it, and it goes through. And so there's these different types of proposals, and some things that get proposed every year that people are really passionate about, that they're in the minority on, things that that maybe we didn't really think through last off season. It kind of needed some fleshing out, and
Mhm.
so now we're here fleshing it out a little bit more the following off season. And it just kind of it's just there's a proposal process, there's an approval process by the league, then there's a discussion process, and then there's the ballot process to and then you see the release from the league. This is what happened in owners
Mhm.
meetings, and I sum it up in about 300 words, and you go, oh, that must have taken 20 minutes. Nope, it took, it was weeks. And
Yeah.
nobody really likes it. Nobody really likes going through all these discussions and doing all this monotonous work. We like signing players, building playbooks, and getting on the field, right?
Yeah.
That's what we like. But at the end of the day, there, as the league evolves and changes, there are some things that we need to keep up with the times on, and that's why those are conducted. And so
Yeah.
it's a very fascinating time of the off season, and it's not necessarily exciting to the average person, but
Yeah.
it can get interesting in there.
Well, I appreciate the sort of the pulling the curtain back on the governance and all the effort and checks and balances and collaboration that happens behind the scenes. It makes me, just in awe of the work that you and every owner and everybody as part of this does to put together, such a great product that the SFL and the experience that we're all enjoying so thoroughly. So I appreciate that.
It's just like the NFL, right? There are some owners that they are involved in every time you turn on the channel, they're talking about, some executive is talking about something, right? And then you got owners like the Ravens. What the hell has the Ravens owner ever done? Like, I don't even know who he is, right? Or she. I don't even know if it's a male or a female. Like, I have no idea who the Ravens owner is. Someone can tell me in the chat. But the SFL is very similar. We have some owners that say, "Look, man, I don't care what the rule set is. Just roll the ball out. I'll adjust and we'll play. Let's go." And then there are other teams that feel very passionately about a lot of different subjects, and participate more. And
Mhm.
either way is fine.
Yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate that. We're going to move into questions and answers. Daniel, have you been able to collect any questions that we've been seeing that haven't been answered yet?
Well, just from our Discord, and Travis Arthur posted this again. Thank you for doing that in the chat as well. Could a two-way contract player in this minor leagues get called up before playoffs begin? So they will be playing on both sides, but say like their secondary spot is override and they become the primary just before playoffs. Will they be? They're allowed to go still play playoffs while being in the minors as well, right? At that time.
Good question. So um, there's a cutoff period for when you can sign new players into the pros. So after now, I don't know what it'll be with the extended 14-week season, but I think usually it's been after week 9 or week 8. You don't There's no releasing of players and signing new players, right? And so after that point, you're not going to see any roster adjustments, and so you're not going to see anybody, um, lose or gain a two-way contract, right? Somebody may gain a two-way contract, right? Somebody leaves, right? They fall inactive, so a two-way player gets called up to be, to be in one of those one-way contract spots, and then someone that's undrafted, kind of like Justin Reside last year. Daniel.
Yep.
He comes out. He basically comes into the pros early. He doesn't get drafted. He takes a different route, and so in that scenario, right, Reside might get a two-way contract in that spot. And
Yeah,
so
just to clarify that, so in that spot, I would have had the two-way contract. I go to primary, then Reside will get my two-way contract, right?
correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And so, but that all of that happens before a certain cutoff period. And the reason why the league does that is we want our minor league rosters to be populated and full of players. And so if teams are constantly making roster moves and pulling people out of the minors, even in the playoffs, well, we're just losing guys to be drafted, right? And we want to have a healthy pool of players at all positions. And so eventually during the season, we say, okay, that's it. No more signings. The rosters are how they are. And that's where you will also see the end of two-way contracts being added or removed as players move up and move down.
Hey, there was one more. Miles FH in the chat says, if your SFL value rises above your minor league value on a two-way, does your minor league follow that then, or does it only change if you're still on a two-way the next season? So he's talking about values again.
Right. So we'll use the scenario. You were 78 in the minors. You're 74 in the majors. You progress beyond a 78, right? The league considers that as you have reached your potential. You have eclipsed what you were in the minors, and so that value that you were holding on to or saving, that goes away. Now you still may be able to be signed to a two-way contract, but that higher value is always going to be the one that follows you.
Okay, and that was the only two questions that I got so far in the chat.
All right. Well, good. Daniel, did you have any questions yourself personally?
Not for this particular thing, but I know, Cam, you talked about how the portal is making things a little easier. We don't have to do things manually anymore. So for off season, because this feels like a long off season, maybe it's because I was in the minors this season, so I kind of got a bit of a wait. Will off season get shorter and shorter now that the portal is integrated?
Yes, it will. So one of the reasons, it's my fault. One of the reasons that the off season felt so long is because there were a couple of weeks in there that nobody did anything, and that was
rightfully so.
Yeah, right. And so that was a very kind of unusual and weird off season so because everything feels. I mean, it's really crammed tight in December. I mean, we basically got something going on every few days in December, and so that's really exciting. But in the future, the time between so let me pull up the calendar. So I'm talking about specific dates, but the time between your last progression. Okay, so we opened up progression through the playoffs now. So now it's 17 weeks, not 12, as you're progressing in the major league. But from the time that did you not know that, Axel?
No, I knew that there was going to a 14-week with 2 bye, which means 14 weeks of progression. I did not know we get the 3 extra playoff weeks. That throws off Daniel and I. Just earlier this week, we're making new spreadsheets, planning out our stuff for the new 14 weeks of progression per season. Now we get to add 3 more weeks. That's crazy. That's actually really exciting because we were in comparison to minor league players, we are not able to progress during the off season. So those 3 weeks are pretty huge.
Well, it's going to be interesting for the teams that are in the playoffs. It can help make or break the difference in winning or losing a playoff game. And then for teams that are not in the playoffs, either you are able to get a head start on next season, or you are able to see, you want to see if your team is really paying attention, right? You've been eliminated from the playoffs and everybody's kind of sad and whatever. Well, are they still sticking around, being active and being engaged, and those type of things. And so there's a lot of different built-in benefits to just kind of seeing how all that looks. And it will also give those teams who didn't make the playoffs a chance to download those official team rosters and see what their team would look like at the start of next season if all of those progressions were able to stay on those players. So it does a few things. But the 2022 calendar, which can be found on the league website in the article about the off-season dates. It's on the homepage. I think it's like the 5th or 6th one now. But the 2022 off-season calendar has the next championship game being May 14th or 15th, the weekend of that. But from May 14 through 15, the next season starts July 9th. That's less than 2 months. So there's going to be less than 2 months between less than 30 days between your last progression in the playoffs and the opportunity to re-sign with your team. and there's going to be less than 30 days from the last time you have an opportunity to re-sign your team to the time the season is going to begin. We didn't have a chance to shrink that off season because of other life things, but now it's fully on the books for 22. And the reason why we are able to do that is, as you guys have seen, contracts fly these days.
Yeah.
You can stick a guy on a roster in 10 seconds if the contract is ready to go, right? So given the speed in which we are able to build rosters for those that weren't here back in the day, teams did all of their contracts in a group DM, and then they all got put in a spreadsheet, and then somebody by hand put every single attribute in for every single player into a roster file. And that's how they got built. So we actually had a whole month of the calendar that was devoted to just simply building rosters for the season. And now that month has been wiped off the calendar because we don't need it anymore. And so what that's going to do is it's going to help shorten those off seasons. It's going to help give players, more in-season time where they are actively engaged with what we've got going on here, and so we think that's pretty good. I don't even remember, how do we even get on this topic?
I think it was
I think
talking
you were asking.
about like off season, length of off season.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was asking
So-
about the length of off season because of the portal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's what it looks like. So the length of the off season in the spring is May 15th to July 9th. That's a little bit less than 2 months. And then the off season in the fall is, let's see, November 6th to January 15th. It's a little bit more than 2 months, but that's because of the Christmas New Year week that everybody deserves to be with family and all that
Absolutely.
other stuff. So that's the only difference.
Very cool. I think that's all the questions that we have. Cam, is there anything else that you'd love to cover at all, or you feeling good or anything?
That I'm feeling good about. I'm really pleased with. I know that there are players out there that, pro players anyway. Some bumps and bruises with the portal, just just coding stuff. So we're sorry for any kind of delays or issues that you had in signing with your contract. But more importantly, I think Axel is to reiterate how excited I am that minor league players are going to be in the portal too. And I think that minor leaguers are living in the stone age of the old SFL. They're having to look up sheets and website links and details about how to progress, what to progress, how much can they do, how many weeks does it take to save for an animation, how many this, how many that. In the portal, you don't have to worry about that. Daniel knows, Axel knows. It just tells you what you
It
Super
have.
tells you
fast.
everything. It's
Yeah,
so nice.
and so you don't have to worry about A, making a mistake, and B, that progression getting put in the roster incorrectly. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. And so it's kind of right in front of you. And if you make a mistake, just go back and do another one, right? Just
Yep.
change it. And so all those are really good. And it's going to be really great to get the minor leaguers into that system so that they can kind of see what the pro players have been seeing for the last 6 or 7 months, which is, wow, this makes a big difference in the operations of the league and the team and signing contracts and just seeing my player and seeing how my player compares to other players. So much easier now, than it used to be to kind of look everybody up and see where you stand and see what you're striving to get to. That's been a big part of my off season, is working to make sure that we get more players onto pro teams, working to make sure that the players are protected when they do get into certain situations in the pros, if that does occur, and then getting those players into our automated system so that some of the confusion and frustration can be taken down a notch with everything in front of them. So I'm really looking forward to doing that. I would project that we will be able to start progressing minor leaguers on the portal the first week of January. That's a projection, and I mean we've got 4 weeks until then, and the SFLm league is already created on the portal, so it's just a matter of getting everybody situated, and I think we'll be able to do that. So it's right around the corner.
Awesome. And yeah, I remember back in June, being drafted and getting into the portal and things. It's a couple steps. There's the bot to help you, and you get your password and you log in, and you're there. And progressions take 5 seconds. And like you said, it's open. When the window's open, you're available to progress. You go in there. If you want to change it in the window, it's right there, 24/7. It's pretty easy. So
yeah, we're
cool.
really excited about it. It's been a long process, a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of details, a lot of people. Tom Rahman, Marcus Dunhill, Andrew Rastelli, Jacob Bouvet, Liam Crowder, a lot of people working to build the portal, educate the programmer on our bat bleep crazy rule sets and league, and just all the devilish details and everything, and just to get it all custom built, and to say, this is ours and nobody else's. It's a really great feeling, and it sets us up for many successful years. And my dog is crashing the
That's all right. Hello, puppy. Cool. Well, Daniel, do you have any last words at all?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned this, Cam, because before we went on the air, before you came in, I was talking briefly with the rookies, Lailu and Meercat, and I was telling them how great the portal is for contracts. I think London signed their entire team within a minute because they already had everything done.
Right.
It's pretty fast. Yeah. And like even the concept of like, oh, I want to change my equipment. Oh, I'm going to rescind the contract. I would change that, send it back out, sign it. Really easy, really simple. I can't imagine. I was never part of the pre portal stuff, so I can't imagine the hell that was.
Every team. Well, and I think the biggest hell, Axel, was on poor Marcus Dunhill and Andrew Rastelli before him, the director of player personnel. See, what happens is the team would submit a contract. Well, how do we know that it's within the rules, right? If a run route was 91 last year and they submit a contract with 94 run route, and probably everybody at home is going, the max is 90, Cam, you're an idiot, because I see now that it's 90. But if they have a run route of 87 and they submit a run route of 90, but they don't use 3 loyalty points for that 90, that contract is wrong, right? But every single one of those pieces of the contract has to be checked to be correct, because we don't have a system that prevents people from submitting incorrect contracts, right? Or we didn't, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the people were what helped keep everybody in line, right? But people make mistakes. Just like sometimes teams would submit contracts and it was just a mistake. Like that number is just wrong. And they go, oh my gosh, I typed a 6 instead of a 7. Let me fix it, whatever. And so it caused a backlog in approving signings. It caused just a managerial headache to try and figure out all of that, just all of that minutia and all that stuff. And it was just, we knew that we're not going to be able to grow this league if this is the way we're going to do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Something has to change. And so, that's when we started exploring doing what we ended up doing. And I love it. It's one of my pride and joys of all these years of running the league. So
yeah. Well, we appreciate you investing in the league, which ultimately is investing in us as players, in our experience, in our joy of building our characters and role playing and getting in there and having a ton of fun. So I appreciate all the work that you and everyone else behind the scenes has done so far. And with that, then, thank you both for joining me. Thank you everyone for coming in tonight. I feel like I've learned a lot. Cam, one last question is, if anybody does have any future questions, where is the best place to find answers? Or is there a person or anybody that they should reach out to?
Questions about anything, Axel?
Or
anything?
not anything or everything. more of these things that we've covered tonight. Two-way 23-man rosters. If any questions or hypotheticals come up, is there a person that you would recommend being reached out to?
Well, Andrew Rastelli is always a good resource for minor leaguers. I get sometimes some questions in DMs about minor league progression, and I'm like, man, I can't help you. It's just not a subject that I am well versed in. Go to Rastelli, that's his department. But this two-way contract stuff, what um, what protections you have as a player, what options you have as a player. Why would you want to accept a two-way contract? Why would you not want to accept a two-way contract? People feel like there's a reason not to, right? All those different answers and questions you can ask Rastelli. You can feel free to ask me. And it's also very important to tell rookies that I am available a bunch of days during the week. I have a calendar on the website. It's in a button called Call the Commissioner. If you ever want to have a more in-depth conversation like this about your specific situation or about something, an idea that you had or something that you just want to talk about, that availability is there to talk to the community. I really want to get to know everyone, and I if you have questions, comments, concerns, I want to know what they are so that we can continue to make the SFL as good a place as possible. So my DMs are always open. If it's just little stuff, if it's just little clarification stuff, but if you ever want more in-depth one-on-one conversations, I am there for you. The Call the Commissioner button on the website, and please don't hesitate to reach out. I do not bite. I am not as you can see, suit and tie, disconnected, rich fat cat, whatever. I sold my house. My cat has a blown eardrum and has a tilted head. Like, my life is not glamorous, and I'm just okay with that. And I want to be approachable to you. So, I if you ever need anything, I'm here.
We appreciate it. There, you have so much care for everything, every single person in here, which is shines through. So I appreciate that.
And Eddie's throwing shade about it's been a long time that I've had community chat. I will have another one soon. The only problem is that because Eddie calls me every day, I don't have any time to talk to anybody else. So as soon as he stops calling me every day, I will be able to talk with the rest of the community. He's very selfish.
All right, cool. Well, with that, we will end the show. Like I mentioned before, check out our show schedule on the Discord. And if you aren't part of the Discord, hit !Discord in the chat. You'll get a link there to join. And with that, I bid you adieu. Have a great Wednesday evening. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you guys on Saturday night for the games. All right, talk soon.
See you later, guys.
Bye, guys.